Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be going into part one of this three-part video that's going to address adding in melee attacks. There's quite a bit to address, and so that's why I'm breaking it into three parts so that way we can focus on each of the parts individually. First, I want to address adding in our melee weapon. So I've created a new sprite and spent quite a bit of time trying to make this look decent. So I have like an axe, a club, whatever you'd like to just call it. I've created this, and this is the little simple animation that I've got here. It swings down like so. I'm gonna slow this down a bit to make it a little bit more reasonable. There we go, 15 frames per second, not too bad. But this represents the swinging effect of our axe. And so what the animation will play is just a single chop down. And there it is. I've made my origin point the handle for how I'm doing it. Depending on what item you like to use as your melee weapon and how you'd like to set it up, you can do this however you'd like. But the important thing is for making the hitbox for your sprite, you'll want to follow the following steps. So you've created your sprite, you're satisfied with how it looks. It has this swinging effect, looks great. You got your origin where you want it to be. What you're gonna end up having to do is right click, duplicate this. And what we do to create our hitbox, let me go ahead and open this up. Down below, what I had originally done to create this hitbox effect was whenever you duplicate your sprite and take a look over at it, let's edit the image. So we've got this. What I do is end up adding a layer to my sprite. Add layer. And on this layer, let me go ahead and set the layer property to make this somewhat transparent. And I build up a little hitbox for this to represent what I want to consider the space to get hit by as the weapon swings. And so for instance, there, that box, you can of course make it a lot more precise. It's up to you, your game, your design. But I'm only getting the axe or club head. And so as it swings down, you see this. And then I'm gonna hide, removing the eye, and then this just produces the little box outline. Then we rename this to our hitbox. And so we're not going to end up actually seeing the sprite in the game. Instead, what you're going to do, you're going to, after you've of course created the hitbox, you return back to, let me delete this little example that I had. You're going to return back to up here. Since you duplicated it, the origin point should be at the same spot where your swing origin point was. But here, we're going to go over to the collision mask and we're going to change it. So by default, it's rectangular. And so that's how, of course, outlining the overall shape of the axe as it was being swung and whatnot. We want to change this from rectangular to precise per frame. And so what that does is as it swings, it is only going to be doing a collision mask around what we have defined as the hitbox, since you hid the other layer. This is all that's visible. And so the hitbox is exactly what we've drawn out. So now that we have the swing and the hitbox for our swing, we're good to go on that front. With code later on, we'll have the sprite or the object actually use this sprite, but this hitbox to do our attack. There's only one other object to create as an enemy. I just have a placeholder item. It's just this little rectangular box with a nice little colored outline. You can create whatever you'd like. You can actually put in your enemy if you already have created one, but I'm just using this as a placeholder item. So with those three sprites down, let's go ahead and create our object for our axe. And so this will be obj underscore axe. I'm going to, of course, select my sprite of the axe swing, leave this be. Everything is good for now. We will return back to this much later. But we're gonna end up having quite a few events inside here. So with this video today just addressed making your sprite for your swing. I call it axe swing. You can rename it to whatever item you have. This is your game, however you'd like to set it up. We're making this as a separate object that appears when the player swings and then disappears as soon as they're done. We're not really messing around with the collision mask for our axe. Instead, we created a separate sprite, SPR axe swing hitbox, duplicating the original one and then layering out this little outline to represent where the axe head is. We went into the collisions and ensured that we switched the type to precise per frame. With that, we now have a far more accurate collision mask being checked for every frame. This is a little bit expensive in terms of our operations, but it will end up working out fine for us. We're not going to be having a lot of these occurring simultaneously. You really only should be able to swing once. And so we've got the axe swing, we've got the hitbox for the axe swing. We have a placeholder enemy item. We've created our axe object. I'm going to go ahead and also create our enemy object. Grab our enemy sprite, obj underscore enemy. And let's just go to our testing room that we have previously made and throw in a couple of enemy objects. I'm going to go ahead and add a new instance layer. Put this below player but above wall. Call this one enemy. And I'm just going to make sure I'm in the enemy layer and drag a couple of enemies down here. Just for our testing purposes. Okay. We should be all good and set. Right now, if we run the game, nothing's going to really be going on because we haven't implemented anything else. But this gets us set up for the next video, which will address us beginning to implement the code to have our axe swing work properly. And so you should have your axe swing, the axe swing hitbox, the sprite for the enemy. You've made an axe object with no events, an enemy object with no events, and you've updated your testing room just to include your enemies so you can visualize them and see them in the room. That's all I've got for today. If you have any questions, just ask me in class. Otherwise, everyone have a good one.